Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the Haydn Symphony Crusade, and we're up to number 66 in B-flat major. This piece was written around 1775, 1776, in as much as anybody can tell, because like most of the Haydn symphonies, at least the ones from this gigantic middle period, it's impossible to date exactly. But it is a miracle of symphonic construction. It really is, aside from being fun and adorable and full of luscious tunes, and in the slow movements, that wonderful Haydn-esque, we should be getting used to it now, from Symphony number 64, which is a very extreme example. But this stillness, this idea of gushes of emotion that are suddenly interrupted or quiet down, the elegance, the austerity of means at times, the incredibly sensitive use of woodwind instruments. I mean, it's all there. It's all in there, and it's all just marvelous. But this symphony is unified. This is such a cohesive piece of writing. And I want to talk about that a little bit, because I think then turn you loose on the symphony for its individual qualities. But I really want to talk about how Haydn unifies a four-movement cycle. I mean, we've gone through this with many other works, but this one is a particularly clear example of that. Really, really juicy. Haydn is, as I always said, he plays no tricks on us, but you have to know what to listen to and what to listen for. And one of the ways I know that I'm right, let's put it that way, when I talk about these things, I mean, accurate, that this is a legitimate way to listen, is because I try, when I hear these symphonies before doing these talks, and I listen to them like lots and lots of times before I talk about them. I don't write anything down about the talk, but I do, listen to the symphony very frequently. I hear things and I say to myself, if I've guessed correctly, if I understand what Haydn is doing, this will be important, that will be important, this is what I think he's going to do. And then 99% of the time, it turns out that's what he does, that I guessed correctly. So it's not that Haydn is predictable, it's that he has a style, and this style has very specific fingerprints. And one of the aspects of that style is the way he manages to unify a four-movement cycle without quoting themes from one movement to the next, without having to use, romantic composers. Let's put it this way. Think of like the Franck Symphony in D minor, or Tchaikovsky's Fifth, or even Brahms's Third Symphony. They take motives, they take ideas, and then they repeat them one way or another, from movement to movement. And we notice them, because these ideas are extremely arresting. They're very, 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 very captivating often, and identifiable, and they tend to be long. They're melodies. They last multiple bars of music, and so when you hear them come back, you recognize them, and that's the point. And that's one way of doing it. But Haydn's method is totally different. There are times when he does actually quote melodies between movements, but they're very, very rare. We've talked about that, Symphony number 46, where the minuet comes back in the middle of the finale. There are times when he wants to do that, but as often as not, that's not his method. His method is to take very small building blocks of music, things that often wouldn't grab your attention at all, and to create entirely new melodies out of the same building blocks, new ideas, but using some of the same methods of construction, not all of them. He doesn't have to use all of them. That's the wonderfulness about this, because Haydn is working, first of all, on a relatively small scale. I mean, the symphony's 20 minutes long, maybe, 20 and a bit. It's not going to stretch your attention span to the point where you have to have big, loud, major landmarks in order to recognize something when it returns. There's a similarity of feeling about all of the material in the symphony, and so he can operate over a shorter time span, and with very, very much smaller materials, blocks that he builds his music out of. And this particular symphony has 2 blocks that he uses in all of the movements in a very, very obvious way, in a very clear way. Those elements are a squiggle da-da-da-dum, that's a squiggle. Or a melodic turn, ya-da-da-da-dum, or da-da-da-da-dum. Anything like that, anything squiggly sounding. A little bunch of notes. It's not enough to be called a tune, but it's a thing. It's an object. It's a piece of something. And when you hear a squiggle, you say, oh, it's a squiggle, because it's not anything else. So there's da-da-da-da-dum, there's a squiggle, and there's a rhythm. And the rhythm is bump-ba-dum. That's the rhythm. That's all it is. It's kind of amazing. If in slow tempo and quick tempo, it's dum-ba-dum. In slow tempo, it's ya-da-dum, something like that. But it's the same rhythm, one way or another. Now, he can use these things in various ways. The symphony opens with just a squiggle. It's ya-da-da-dum, squiggle, ya-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-dum. And then it repeats, and when it repeats, the rhythm comes in. Da-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-dum, bum-ba-dum, da-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-dum, bum-ba-dum. We're going to play that. The slow movement also begins with a squiggle, and then with a couple notes after it, just to put it in context, and then the rhythm. It's ya-da-da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-dum. So it's squiggle, rhythm. The minuet does just the opposite. The minuet is well, actually, no, it's the same thing. The minuet is a squiggle, and the rhythm as well. Ya-da-da-da-dum, bum, bum, ba-da-da-da. No, it's the other way around. Pardon me. It's the rhythm, then the squiggle. Ya-da-dum, bum, bum, da-da-da-dum, ya-da-dum, bum, bum, da-da-da-da-dum. So it's rhythm, squiggle, rhythm, squiggle. That's the minuet. Now, the finale doesn't have the rhythm at all. The finale is the triumph of the squiggle. You may recall at the beginning of the symphony, the squiggle appeared without the rhythm. And so that's how it's going to end. We're back to the old squiggle, and it's going to squiggle its way into our hearts. But I'm going to get into the details of all of this on a movement-by-movement basis. So we'll get a chance to listen to it in a more extended way. First, I want to play you a mashup I made of the beginnings of all four movements with little half-second pauses between them so that you can hear that squiggle rhythm, squiggle rhythm, rhythm squiggle, and squiggly, 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 squiggly. That's all you need to worry about. And if you can do that, you will understand how Haydn creates a coherent symphony using similar building blocks between the movements. But after that, you take each movement as it comes, because every single movement has its own thematic material, its own emotional ambience, its own expressive point, but the building blocks are similar. And that's what makes it just so amazing. So let's listen to this mashup of all four movements with the squiggle and the rhythm, or the other way around, as we get to the end of the symphony. You ready? Here we go. What could be simpler, right? A squiggle and a bump-a-dump rhythm. And from that, the entire symphony grows. It's really rather phenomenal and interesting, and very different from what happens, like I said, later on in the Romantic period. When you listen to these symphonies, Cat's having a nervous breakdown. When you listen to these symphonies, you should always be aware of these small motives, these little ideas, and think about them. Think about, they're so easy to remember. It couldn't be easier. And then try and pay attention and hear when they return. Now, not everything is going to be, intentionally reminiscent. It doesn't work that way. But there's enough, and that's the point. There's enough to create a feeling of unity. And that's what you want to shoot for when you're listening. Think about unity. So let's listen to the exposition of the first movement. You'll notice that the rhythm part doesn't come in until the repeat of the opening melody. As I said just a few minutes ago, or a few moments ago, initially the squiggle is by itself, and then you hear the opening again, this time with the rhythm in the horns. The symphony is scored, by the way, for 2 oboes, 2 bassoons, and 2 horns. And the horns are in B-flat alto. That means in their high register, which makes for an absolutely thrilling sound and wonderful, wonderful, brilliant tutis when the whole orchestra is playing together, or those high horns are ringing out. It's just marvelous. So you've got those ideas at the very beginning, and then the rest of the exposition becomes very, very excited. I mean, forget about squiggles and rhythms for a minute. Listen to the whirlwind that Haydn creates in the motion music, the transition to the second idea, which does not use, by the way, the squiggle or the rhythm. It's a totally independent concept. But there's just a virtuoso joy in the string writing in this symphony particularly. And that whirlwind is something that will also make a brief but noticeable appearance in the finale. And there'll be a reason, which I will get to when we get to the finale. So let's listen to the exposition, just the whole exposition. And then I turn you loose on the whole movement, which has fabulous, wonderful things happening in the development section. And, you know, it's typically Haydn. It's the invention is just limitless, you know, once you get into it. But the exposition, here it is. Oh, this is with the Austro-Hungarian Haydn Orchestra under Adam Fischer. Very good performances, these middle period symphonies. Here you go. So there you have it, a squiggle and a rhythm, and lots of other good music besides, which is really just as important, right? I mean, the unity bit, the glue bit is one aspect of it, but the other aspect of it, which is even more important, is just how marvelous everything else is. What a terrific movement Haydn puts together. So that's the first movement. Now, the second movement, as I said, is another exercise in this sort of static, somewhat wistful, sometimes kind of desolate, at other times just romantically gushing. Really, really extraordinary music. Huge, huge range of feeling in these pieces. But here you have, once again, the squiggle, and then the rhythm. Da-da-dum is the rhythm. Da-da-da-da-da is the opening with the squiggle, and then the rhythm. You'll hear it. So here's the exposition there. And listen to Haydn's incredibly poetic use of silence. You know, the stillness that it creates, this timelessness. It's a quality that's really almost lost to us in music these days, because composers feel that they have to keep things busy all the time. There has to be something happening. There's never time to just stop and listen to the voice of nature, you know, whatever it is. It's just this wonderful silence. Anyway, here you go. So, squiggle, rhythm, and lots of other stuff besides. Now, we did a bit of the minuet. You only need to hear the A section. And the only thing I want to point out about the minuet, and there's a reason for this, which I said we'd get to, and we will, is that the squiggle is not the most important thing. It's the rhythm. The rhythm is the thing in the minuet. Da-da-dum, bum, bum, da-da-da-dum, squiggle. Rhythm, da-da-dum, bum, bum, da-da-da-dum. But as you can hear, Haydn repeats the rhythm over and over and over and over. He wants the rhythm to dominate. So here's just the opening 8 bars of the minuet. It takes 10 seconds to play, but you'll get exactly what I'm talking about. And it's another aspect of this symphony that it does the things it's going to do just right away. No delay at all. It's just, here it is, folks. Swiggle, rhythm, next thing. Here you go. Now, the finale, as I have pointed out, does not use the rhythm. In fact, it really rather studiously avoids it. And the reason, I think, is probably pretty obvious when you consider that the minuet, pretty obviously, didn't avoid it. So Haydn wants contrast. He doesn't want you to keep thinking, oh, gee, it's more of the same. It's just another dump-a-dump and another wiggity-wiggity. And, no, he doesn't do it that way. Once he's created this sense of unity, he doesn't feel any obligation to flog you over the head with it. He doesn't think that we're morons. He thinks that a suggestion is as powerful as, a screamingly loud, obvious statement. But the interesting thing about this finale is that it is the triumph of the squiggle. And the squiggle gets so squiggly that it actually at one point turns into that string whirlwind, that sort of thing that we heard from the first movement. In that way, we hear that even the passage work, the busy music, the music that's just about movement itself, derives from the basic building blocks of the whole symphony. And that's just so freaking cool. It sometimes it makes my head want to explode. But the other thing about this finale is that it is a variation rondo. That is, it's a rondo, as I've said a million times, is A, B, A, C, A, basically. A, B, A, C, A, D, A. I mean, you can keep going indefinitely. But in this particular case, the variations on the main theme, which is da 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 dum bum ba da 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 dum bum 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 ba da 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 dum, squiggle, squiggle, get it, squiggle. First, just a couple of them. Then the continuation, da 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 ba da 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 dum bum 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 ba da 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 dum. It gets more and more squiggly. But then as the rondo theme comes back, Haydn varies it by just loading it down with squiggles. It's very funny. The actual designation for this movement is presto e scherzando. Very fast and joking, playful. And that's what it is. It's incredibly playful because he just cuts loose and the squiggles take over the universe. It's like, Trouble with Tribbles on Star Trek. These little fluffy, adorable things wind up taking over the entire ship. Well, there you go. That's what happens in this movement. It is the Trouble with Tribbles of Haydn's symphonic movements. So I'm going to play you the opening rondo theme, the first episode, and then the return of the rondo with a lot of added squiggles, so you get a sense of exactly what it's doing. It's just deliciously funny and witty and warm and charming and all the good things in music. It really is. So here it is. And that's it. I mean, there's no need to go on with it. It's an incredibly clear, enjoyable, unfussy, uncomplicated exercise in good spirits, joy, moments of pensiveness and happiness, but stillness, pardon me. But generally speaking, a delightful work that is happy to explain to you what it's doing while it's doing it, which I just think is so wonderful. I really do. The music is so giving. All of Haydn's music is like that, but this symphony particularly. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. And next is 67, which is a screaming masterpiece of in an extremely experimental vein in many, many ways. We're going to have to get into that in some level of detail, I think. But for the moment, we can just relax and enjoy this delicious number 66, which nobody ever plays, of course, because, yeah, right. Take care.